All right, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call to order the July 12th, 2017 meeting of the Ascension Parish Zoning Commission. All members, with the exception of Mr. Bishop and Mr. Chasson, are present. We will have an introduction of staff.
Patrice Johnson, Zoning Secretary.
O'Neill Parrington here on behalf of Cody Martin as the attorney for the Zoning Commission.
Lance Brock, zoning official.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Sean Schroe, Engineer Review Agency. Item number 3 on the agenda is a motion to either accept or deny the minutes of the June 14th, 2017 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
there is an issue with the meetings I just want to bring to your attention. The number of votes on, that are listed are incorrect. We had 3 people present, and we have quite a few 3 yeas, 1 nays. The math doesn't quite add up to all that, and I was wanting to see if they could get that corrected for the official minutes.
The present were Mr. Bishop, Mr. Chasson, Mr. Schexnayder, and Mr. Dumas. That's 4.
Well, we had, for instance, some of these that were all yeas, and on the, there was one in particular that was all voted, so that, I was just wanting to make sure that all that was checked.
Okay, I see on, to approve the minutes, it looks like 3 yeas, 1 nay, 3 absent. That should be, the numbers add up there. The next vote I see is on to deny the amendment to the zoning map for Ethel Road from medium intensity residential to mixed use. We got 2 yeas, 1 nay, and 3 absent, so that's 6. So we're 1 short on that one. The other one, item number 6, is a contract agreement. 3 yeas, 1 nay.
That one was incorrect.
You think it was 4 yeas?
Well, it was saying yeas, Moore Bishop, Aaron Chasson, Wade Schexnayder, nays, none. But if you look,
There's
it's
1
3
nay.
yeas, 1 nay, 3 absent, and
Okay.
I noticed that a few times. I just wanted to make sure that would be corrected in the official minutes.
Well, and there's, in all of them, Mr. Dumas, who was acting as chairman, did not vote, so that would be
0 nays.
0 nays.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's just a small matter I've noticed.
So is your motion to approve subject to the, or do you want to defer this to the next month to get the votes checked by staff?
I think it would be okay if the staff would just correct those and then we move forward. But, so I'd like to make a motion, if they can just correct the votes, to approve.
All right. Motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Dumas.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 4 is the chairman's comments, and I'm going to make some comments so that the issues that I think are coming before us, particularly as to the contract agreements, are framed properly. And I know this has been an issue, particularly as to item 7B, which is the Crawfish Aquatic Contract Agreement that I've heard about. Now, I want to say, first off, that the land where both of these contract agreements are coming forward for is zoned for exactly what is being proposed on those pieces of property. That has been set forth by the council, which is our legislative body, the parish council, in the zoning ordinances for these types of developments. Now, and so we're really not reviewing whether or not the land is properly being used. The council has already said it is, and has not made any changes to the zoning ordinances to change the zoning for this. Now, the code recognizes basically 4 types of development standards in Ascension Parish, and this is 17-2070. There's use regulations, structure regulations, site regulations, and other regulations. Section 17-2070B says to provide flexibility to land use regulations in the parish, this chapter authorizes the parish to enter into contract agreements designed to mitigate the impact of the development on the parish. Contract agreements may modify the structure or the regulations in this parish, but may not alter the use regulations. So we cannot change the use of these lands. That's something that, by the contract agreement, that's something that the parish council has to do. If they want to rezone the property, that's their choice to do that. Now, in terms of contract agreements, if you look particularly as to the crawfish aquatic one, there are certain parts of that development do not even need to come before us. It's zoned properly, and they can proceed with construction whenever. But there are certain parts of that development which have CA in the table of approved zoning. CA meaning contract agreement. And this is addressed specifically in Parish Ordinance 17-2072, which it says, a structure denoted by the letter CA in Appendix 1, Table B, Site Requirements by District, in any district is only permitted if the building permit holder has a valid executed contract agreement with the parish prior to obtaining a development permit. These development projects are compatible with the character of the district, so it's already saying it's compatible with this district, but they are likely to have a significant impact on the available infrastructure or environment. The purpose of this designation is to provide flexibility for the parish by encouraging the development of these types of developments if the property owner or developer has executed a contract agreement to mitigate the adverse impacts. Article 17-2072F2 is a commentary and says, in certain circumstances, a property owner may enter into a contract agreement with the parish. Projects of this type can proceed only if the parish executes a contract agreement that mitigates the adverse impact from the development. And then there's a reference to section 17-2060, which addresses specifically traffic impact and drainage impact. So what these developers are entering into a contract agreement for is to provide mitigation, if any is warranted under parish code, for traffic and drainage. In other words, they're going to agree to follow the law, which is what we expect of them. Now, this comes up because I will grant anybody who wants to come up here and tell me that we can do this an issue as to whether or not the commission can reject the contract agreement. The commission does have that authority as set forth in the code. And we've been around this issue several times in the past, particularly into the planning side of what we do, as to the extent by which this commission can deny something that is legally created, meets all the legal requirements. And there is discretion for us to do that. And if you look at the case law, the courts always intertwine planning and zoning together. But we have an Attorney General's opinion as to this. And I know this Attorney General's opinion has been batted about in the media to some extent. It's been misquoted. It's been misconstrued. If you read the whole thing, what the Attorney General has said is you do have the authority. However, any denial of an otherwise legally created development that meets all of the legal standards is going to be met with a strict scrutiny review by the courts, which means that there has to be an overriding, compelling state interest, and whatever action we take against the right to use land has to be specifically addressed and limited to that state interest. As it was said in the Darjan Properties versus City of Shreveport case, which has been adopted throughout the circuit courts of this state, when an owner seeks a use by right in compliance with the applicable zoning, conforming to every modification imposed and approved by the commission, the use of right should be presumptively valid and approved. For the council to deny such a use, the burden is on the city, in this case the parish, is much higher. On judicial review, the council's decision to deny a use by right is subject to a strict scrutiny review, not the normal standard of broad discretion applied to variances cases. And as these contract agreements come up, I suspect, and I'm not a fortune teller, but I've heard enough of it to hear that we're going to hear about traffic impact and about drainage, and more so on traffic impact. Well, the traffic impact and the remediation required is set by the parish council. We are not a legislative body. The parish council is. Our elected officials are. If the traffic impact requirements are inadequate, that is something that must be addressed by the council. We're bound to that. It's not enough to come in and say, well, the traffic impact requirements are just, they're woefully inadequate. Okay, maybe it's true. Take that up with your councilman. It's not enough for us, however, to override the council under that strict scrutiny review because that is a legislative function of the legislative body in this parish. If you think Highway 73 needs more infrastructure, I would probably agree with you. Take it up to the parish council, take it up to our state legislatures. Go call the governor who, according to the advocate, vetoed 5 road bills for our parish this year. But what we have to look at is the law and following the law as set forth by the council. And if these contract agreements meet the law, which my initial review indicates that they do, then our hands are tied to approve those unless there is some evidence that the traffic impact studies they might do or that they are going to do or that they have already done are bad, or the drainage impact study is bad. It's not worth what the engineering said. But if it meets the legal standards, then that's what we're bound to. So let's keep on this discussion tonight. You will have your opportunity to speak if you're here to speak about these issues. I would ask that you keep it within the 3 minutes that you're allotted, but let's keep that in mind as to what we're dealing with specifically here, and these are contract agreements. It's not a debate over whether the property should be zoned that way or not, or whether these developments should be there or not. That has already been decided. The parish council has said, yes, this is what we want in these areas, and the traffic and drainage studies have already been decided by the parish council. These are the standards. We're bound to follow those standards, and if it meets that, then that's what we're bound to do. Having said that, we'll move along to the agenda to get to those issues. And I lost my agenda. Thank you. Item number 5 is a public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code for the recommendation for the approval or denial of the Ascension Parish Council. 5A zoning review ID PZ-1331.17-Z for American Homeland LLC located on the west side of South St. Landry Road, approximately 2,000 feet south of Holly Drive, to request to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation C to medium intensity residential RM.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Murphy.
My name is Derek Murphy with Quality Engineering and Surveying, representing America Homeland on this piece of property off of St. Landry Road. We're asking tonight for a rezoning from conservation to RM zoning. We understand that the staff recommendation is to deny this property because, due to the consideration that it may be spot zoning. However, we'd like for you to look at, even though there is a lot of green or conservation zoning, I'd like you to look at a couple things when you're making your determination tonight. One is that next door to this property, there is presently a trailer park, which is a non-conforming use to the conservation use. In fact, there's close to 7 trailers per acre or 7 homes per acre next door. There's also several other trailer parks or subdivisions with 6 homes per acre and 2 homes per acre. So just letting you know that even though it is zone conservation, they do have higher densities in this particular area. The other thing I'd like for you to pay attention to is that the fact that the future Edenborn extension is coming through here. This is the first new road built in Ascension Parish in this area in many, many years. This whole area, as it's zoned today, conservation, I suspect that this is going to be the first of many in this area to change this landscape coming through here. When you're looking at a corridor connecting Highway 44, the interstate, St. Landry Road to Highway 30, I'm pretty sure that these properties are going to be coming before you to be rezoned as pretty much in this region, in this area. So we're just ahead of the curve. We asked tonight for your consideration and just looking at the future of what this area is. And, you know, Edenborn Extension is under construction. It is going to happen. The funds are allocated. So this entire region is going to change. So we're asking you to let this be the first of many in this area, but really look at also what's next to it and what's out here. That it has got some higher density properties, being trailer parks or being smaller homes in this area off of St. Landry. So we're here tonight to answer any questions you may have, and that's all I have.
Staff?
Yeah, Derek kind of hit it. Staff recommendation is to not deny the medium-intensity residential. due to the location of property, existing property is currently located in the Conservation District, and it could possibly be considered a spot zone.
All right, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this issue. Ms. Patrice, has anybody signed up to speak? All right, we're going to close the public hearing on this. Any comments by the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, I did drive that area, and I did see what you said, and normally I'm very much against changing something from conservation, but Mr. Murphy is correct that this does look like the surrounding use has already been higher intensity than what would be considered normal. St. Landry, Edenborn, all of this is coming. My only real question that I have is what plans do y'all have for this lot in the future? What do y'all have anything down the line that we could be looking at? Do y'all have a subdivision that possibly is planned for this? I mean, is there anything that y'all can give us with that?
Well, obviously, if we're gonna be trying to rezone it to RM, there is gonna be something coming as the next step. So what that is, we don't have finalized yet. I can tell you there are some challenges with this property, as with any property in Ascension Parish as of right now. So I suspect that if we do make it through this step, that we'll be back before y'all with the next step, for sure. With RM, the only thing that can go in there is single-family residential. And so obviously, that's the route that we want to take at this time.
I mean, I would say, Mr. Murphy, I think you're right. I think the likelihood is that area is going to be developed. My only issue with this, and we've come up with this issue on 73, on the north side of 73, between just south of Airline Highway, where it's, that's probably going to be a commercial route at some point. I would like to see the parish as a whole adopt a new master land use plan to take into account. I think this is going to be one of those areas where it's going to be commercial and it's going to be residential. Certainly, there's already stuff surrounding it that says all that. And with the development of Lamar Dixon and Edenborn and all that coming in, the council needs to take a hard look at rezoning that whole area and directing growth there. That would be the whole idea of a new land use plan, to direct growth to these areas where we want growth directed, if that's one of the areas that's deemed. So I would like to see that whole area looked at in addition to the whole parish. The problem I do have, and of course I don't have a vote unless it's a tie tonight, is that it does look to be like a sea of medium residential medium in an area of conservation, otherwise conservation. So I think that's the only issue that I would find with that.
Well, and again, Mr. Pryor, the only thing I got to say is, you're right as far as the color green. However, look at the use. Look what's there. And it is, 7 lots per acre right next door. It is 6 lots per acre right down the street. Even though it is green, it's not conforming.
But if you wanted to rebuild that whole area on both sides of Edenborn and buy that trailer park out, you'd have to get it rezoned at that point. You couldn't,
Yes, sir.
You couldn't go in and just clean it out and build a subdivision.
That is correct.
That's the problem. So,
Let me ask you a question. Isn't the parish also extending St. Landry Road to tie it into, from Edenborn over to 44?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
So,
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
you-
so that, I
And
mean,
that's already started.
that's already started, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the reality of it is that,
See, how's this not
that activity is there already. Not it's coming, it's there.
Well, and that's why I think the council should look at that area, that whole area, pretty intensely and seeing what's.
All right, if you look here, let's see how you get the gizmo going. What's that? Okay. All right. That's a little dark, but if you look here, I kind of drew this as even more an extension showing right above it. So it's coming through right north of where we're talking about. So this whole area, even though it is green, I just wanted to show that is where the major corridor is going to be coming through at.
Comment. Mr. Murphy, I agree like the other councilman that I think this is going to be changed. The zoning will be changed. My question is, wouldn't it be better serve the parish as a commercial area instead of a residential area? Being that we have so much commercial to the front of the property, of St. Landry Road, rather, toward Highway 30, and then we're going into a commercial area where the RPCC and some other businesses are. I question whether putting residential in the middle of that is a good idea. Of course, I know we're not deciding that right now,
Yes,
but just discussion.
and I understand what you're saying, but when you start looking at this corridor, you're gonna have commercial based off the corridor, and then you're gonna start going into, if just basically less and less intense uses as you come off of that. This is not touching the Edenborn extension coming through. This is gonna be off of St. Landry. If it was the intersection of Edenborn and St. Landry, then I can understand what you're saying.
How
This
far?
is a little off of that.
How far off?
Several hundred feet, I believe, less than 1,000. So it is off of there. So if somebody did come in and buy out the trailer park, as you said, and want to put some commercial, they would have room to work that corridor.
They'd be very able to have more of a commercial corridor, and even so, coming off of St. Landry, we would possibly then be able to look at working with them to have any type of spud type of development, or even more commercial facing and then residential behind it. That would be a possibility that we could help them look into as well.
As we're not deciding which way it's gonna go, he's applying for residential. I guess I'd feel more comfortable if this is taken up with the parish council. Look at the whole area, not just this one plot.
Well, I
And
think-
look at rezoning the area instead of just this parcel.
I guess I'm, listening to everything that's been said, I think there's a lot of justification that this parcel, if we would recommend approval, is not a spot zoning. I would encourage that no matter how we vote, I would encourage staff to look at this area, especially with the Edenborn extension and Landry under construction, realizing that, there's going to be a lot of shift in land use in that area. We ought to look at that and see what's in the best interest of the parish.
Right.
And maybe pursue rezoning portions of this area. We're making a recommendation to the parish council how to rezone this thing. So I would encourage staff to look at this area, much like we've done in other parts of the parish when something like this has come up.
Mr. Murphy, I have one more question. Does this existing property, does it go all the way through to the other side of Lamar-Dixon? Like, in other words, isn't there another road that goes behind Lamar-Dixon other than Landry, to where there would be a possible corridor going through this to connect those two roads?
No.
That doesn't exist there, huh?
No.
No,
You
there's,
have Ashland Road on the other side of Lamar.
Edenborn's going to tee off into,
Nothing connects it, though.
yeah.
All right, do we have a motion on this?
I move we deny the approval of this.
We got a motion by Mr. Furman, second.
I'm gonna make a substitute motion to make a recommendation to the parish council to go ahead and approve this, and that staff look at this entire area and bring it back to us in 2 months with a recommendation of what to do, with the extension of these two corridors.
So if I understand, just to be clear on the motion, the substitute motion is to recommend approval and of the proposal to rezone this property to RM, and to have staff present a proposal within 2 months of the 2 months as to the whole corridor, as to what the rezoning should be.
Correct.
All right. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Nay.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
No.
Mr. Christie?
Yes.
Mr. Schexnayder?
Yes.
All right, motion passes by a vote of 3-1, as stated by Mr. Dumas. Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
All right. We'll move on to item number 6, public hearing to amend the Ascension Parish Development Code / zoning tables for recommendation for approval or denial to the Ascension Parish Council. 6A, modification of the Unified Land Development Code related to commercial parking requirements. Is that, you're shaking your head?
Yes, I'll be taking care of that.
Oh, okay. I was looking at
Sorry,
Lance and seeing
I moved
Mr.
over here to the left.
Mr. Funia, yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, staff and administration is recommending the zoning commission that we look at our parking regulations as they apply to commercial entities. We have had some applications in the past, and we've applied our parking standards, and we seem to be a little bit more onerous, and especially as it relates to Gonzales, the city of Gonzales. And staff has recommended that we look at changing our Unified Land Development Code to more or less comply with what's available in the city of Gonzales. City of Gonzales, as an example, right now, Ascension Parish currently requires retail and commercial buildings 1 parking space for every 200 square feet of gross floor area. The city of Gonzales currently requires 1 parking space for every 250 square feet of floor area, but excludes the square footage of storage areas, hallways, and restrooms. Additionally, current minimum size of the parking space in Ascension Parish seems to be a bit excessive in comparison to other areas, particularly the city of Gonzales, and we're recommending that we change the size of the parking area. Just as a general note, there's a consensus in the planning community that parking is being downsized in terms of recommendations for commercial areas, and in particular in inner-city urban areas, they're eliminating parking standards altogether. So we don't want to do that, but we want to make it a little bit more practical for our particular land uses in Ascension Parish. There's a noted planner, nationwide planner, who the day after Thanksgiving, which is the most populated shopping day in America, he asked people to send in pictures of all the vacant parking spots in shopping centers, and he gets a plethora of photographs outlining vacant parking spots. And I think that one of the things that we'd like to do is get a little bit more in compliance with the up-to-date parking standards nationwide, as well as make us a little bit more compatible with the city of Gonzales. So it's our recommendation that you open a public hearing for this and recommend the council adopt the new standards. Right? So.
We'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Patrice, has anybody signed up to speak on this issue? We'll close the public hearing. Any questions, comments, or a motion by the county
Yeah,
commission?
staff, does this bring us in line more so with national standards perhaps, or standards adopted by other parts of the country that reflect this area?
It still makes us a little bit more, I don't want to use the word onerous, but we're certainly, our standards are a little higher than some areas, even with the new adoption. So,
how do we adopt the current standards? How was that done?
well, this was done quite a while back when the zoning ordinance was put together, and I think it was due to some, larger cars, things of this sort.
Right.
So that's how we come up with what we have now. Right?
And, Mr. Chairman, I think more and more as we're starting to see that the brick and mortar stores are being visited less and less, and so the parking just may not be as necessary as it used to be. I think that's just more of a reality of what our commercial activities are. I think this is a suitable change.
We have a motion on this? Moved by Mr. Christie, second.
Second.
By Mr. Furman, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, item number 7, contract agreements, 7A, zoning review ID, PZ-1377.17, 2.6 acres, remainder of tract lots P-1-A and tract P-3-B for National Services, Inc., DBA Oak Lane Memorial Park, located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 73, approximately 900 feet north of Duplessis Road, to request approval of contract agreements.
Good evening, Jill Kraft on behalf of NIS Incorporated. This is a fairly simple issue. We're simply asking for approval of the contract agreement. This is a cemetery that's actually surrounded on almost all sides by a much larger cemetery. My clients own Oak Lane Memorial Park. It's surrounded by Serenity Oaks. Serenity Oaks has already received the contract approval, as I understand it. The drainage and traffic issues, which I think to the extent there are any with respect to cemetery property, are common to both entities, and we urge that we be allowed to go forward with the contract agreement.
Staff?
The applicant is requesting an approval of a contract agreement, and it's for cemetery.
We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Patrice, has anyone signed up to speak on this? I'll close the public hearing. Any questions, comments, and/or a motion by the commission?
Staff, is there any unusual traffic or drainage issues here?
I'll comment, no. Usually, unfortunately, the peak hour for cemetery are not the same peak hours for general traffic.
Right.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to confirm that. I want to make a motion to approve.
I'll
Got a motion
second.
by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you,
Mr.
gentlemen.
Good seeing you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number 7B is zoning review ID PZ-1367.17, lot 1.706 acre tract and former Lottie Henderson right-of-way for Crawfish Aquatics Properties LLC, located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 73, approximately 300 feet north of Longwood Avenue, to request approval of contract agreement. Ms. Lanu.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name's Erin Lanu. I'm here representing Crawfish Aquatics Properties. I have Dr. Steve Ripple, the landowner, with me. He's going to give you some remarks as well. We are here to request approval of a contract agreement for a multi-use facility focused on health and wellness and our youth in particular. Dr. Ripple will speak to you about his vision. Before that, I want to give a little background on the property because I think there may be some misunderstandings about this development. We want to clear up any confusion about how we got to this point. As you can see this in the paperwork, this is 2 adjoining tracts on the west side of 73 at the corner of Longwood subdivision. When Dr. Ripple purchased the property about a year ago, Tract 1 was zoned MU2. That's the tract contiguous to the Longwood entrance. And Tract 2 was zoned RM. That is what the zoning was when he purchased it, and that's what it still remains today, MU2 and RM. When Dr. Ripple began to plan the development, he looked to the parish staff, zoning department for guidance. Out of those discussions came the idea of a SPUD, and that is what the commission considered in February of this year. The SPUD was denied by 1 vote. During the SPUD debate, there was a good, healthy discussion about some of the concerns with the development, and there were some legitimate questions that could not be answered that night. After the SPUD was denied, Dr. Ripple took a look at everything again and evaluated his options. He decided to modify the development so that it would comply with existing allowed uses, and that's what you're seeing tonight. Dr. Ripple's not asking you to approve any zoning change or anything that is not allowed in MU2 and nor RM zones. Now, what's different from the SPUD request and the one that's before you tonight? It's been reduced in size pretty significantly. The total square footage of building, parking, et cetera, is reduced by 20 to 30% than what was presented in the SPUD application earlier this year. So it's a less dense development with less impact on traffic than it was as a proposed SPUD. And still, as the chairman alluded to before we got the meeting going, they're prepared and will have to meet with the traffic study recommendation, with the drainage recommendation, and in line with that, they're prepared and will have to pay traffic impact fees of $25,000 to $30,000 to do this development. And those will be put in a fund for traffic improvements in the parish, as you know. Second, the construction improvements on the property were reconfigured so that the MU2 tract contains only MU2 allowed uses, and the RM tract contains only RM allowed uses. That's what I was alluding to earlier. And finally, the drainage is no longer being altered. That was an issue that was discussed earlier this year. Bayou Goudin is not being touched. There are no plans to bring in any fill. Drainage will be accomplished using existing site conditions. To be clear, this is not a request for a zoning change, a simple request for a contract agreement that's required by the code. Dr. Ripple is prepared to comply with the traffic and drainage, and the code actually has, monitoring discretion by the parish. If he doesn't abide by the contract agreement, then they can halt the development. Anyway, I don't want to get into more of the legalities. I think I would bore everyone if I haven't already. But I do want to say I've been working on this matter with Dr. Ripple for several months now. He's very passionate about the project, and he's doing it for the betterment of the community. This is not some silent investor. It's not someone that's an outside person that's just looking to mess things up in this parish just for money. He truly does care. He's a pediatric dentist, and he and his wife are founders of Crawfish Aquatics. And I'd like to let him tell you what he plans to have on the property for the community.
Good evening. Thank you for the time and, more importantly, the opportunity. I wasn't able to make the other meeting that Scott was at, and I have talked out and reached out to Aaron a little bit just to understand a little bit more. But my time tonight is just to explain a little bit about the vision. I know there's confusion, speculation. I understand those things. And that stuff leads to some challenges because now we've got to change. When people already have a certain impression of what something's going to be, and then you've got to try to explain that in a way. You've already kind of made your decision many times. And I'm not talking to the commissioner, I'm talking to people in the parish. We've done some things, first of all, in the vision-wise. I appreciate Erin's introduction, and thank you for all she's done. But in 32 years as a pediatric dentist, my life has been committed to children, and that's it, to children. And the next generation, that's children, and that's what we do. And what we do with children is to add value to children and significance in life. And if we're not talking about the next generation, I'm not sure why we're here, okay? Now, there's a swim school that started on Segan Lane. Crawfish Aquatics has been around since 1999 on Bluebonnet. We've leased the Jimmy Swigert property since 1999. We've been blessed. It's been a very big road, a lot of challenges. We're blessed with a tremendous team of people that love to give and love to serve, and that's what they do. The significance that's found and why we pursue that significance is because our future is the children. There's a number of things that I said with the swim school. Our actual terminology, what we do with swimming lessons, and we'll get the statistics in just a second. It's a gift of life. You go on our website, that's what it is. Drowning, number one cause of death in the United States, age 1 to 4, is for children, age 1 to 4, number one cause of death, accidental death. The state of Louisiana is double the rate of the United States average per 1,000. The Nuns of Our Lady of the Lake and John Paul Funes, very close friends of mine, the CEO of Children's Hospital being built by the lake, called me in. They had 6 children die of drowning in Shreveport. And those nuns who are the owner said to me, what can we do to stop and to teach? Our swimming lessons program in Crawfish Aquatics does 4,000 children in 10 weeks. 25% of those are community outreach for free. And why? Because children are prone, if there is an accident, and these types happen, you know, we can build roads, but you cannot build another life. You can't build a child's life. So yes, passionately pursuing what I believe in the next generation, not a question. Our swim school, which started in January on Segan Lane, to open an opportunity to actually improve the access and just the frequency. Most swimming lessons are done in the summer months. That'd be like going to school for 2 months. There's a 10-week swimming lessons program in the warm months. Then children don't go in swimming. Well, they learn, that's like going to school for 2 months, and then you'll have 10 months off. You're going to forget what you learned. So the model that has been established in the United States, and we belong to the National Swim School Association internationally, Louisiana, we are the first swim school. There are like 2,500 in the state of Texas. 2,500. We're the first ones in the state of Louisiana. And that means year-round. Right now, after January 1st, there are 600 children that have signed up. And the parents go once a week, like they go to dancing school, or they go to something else to improve just the quality of life for safety and security. Do you know that over 100 of the children of the 600 in Baton Rouge on Segan Lane are from Ascension Parish? I will provide you with the zip codes where they're from. They make the drive because they see the value added to their children's lives, and they understand. If you look at anything I just print out a couple things. If you look at the Department of Children and Family Services, the number one thing on their vision and their mission says, working to keep children safe. The statistics, unintentional drowning, get the facts from the CDC. Once you read that, and if you ever have a child, as I've had 2 friends of mine that have lost children. One, the grandmother was watching 4 children, and she thought that the older children were watching the 3-year-old. And this is a dentist and their 4th child. There's a small little pond in the back. The grandmother, because the parents, who were the dentists, were out of town. And the grandmother asked the other children, where's the little one? And they said, well, he's right out here somewhere. Just slipped into the little lake and drowned. Their life's never the same. It's never the same. It's never been about money. Nothing I've ever done. That has nothing to do with it. My life is not about that. The vision that we have had, okay, the future is reaching forward to serve. And those who connect and cannot do that, we're going to have an opportunity to do that. What is else on the property? People say, okay, the swim school. In talking with people, there's a need. Friends of mine have told me they have an emergency with a child. My vision with this was to put something that is community related, a walking trail, something that is family related. People have said, well, why don't you just go to Airline Highway and build something that's commercial? That's not family related with children. Children want to belong to something. And when you talk about a community, that's like St. John. They wrap their arms around that community. That's why I want to make it something that is community-friendly, the landscape in it friendly, the fountains, as I've told Scott, little things that come up where they can throw little coins where they want to go there. And they passionately want to, they want to connect, they want to belong to something, and they want to learn. And they want to learn swimming. 70% of the African-American population cannot swim. Not one stroke. They fall in water over their head, they drown in panic. You drown in a matter of seconds. It's one of the most silent killers on the planet. 3,253 people die a year. And a majority of those are children. But until you realize that and you get wrapped up in it, it becomes a passionate pursuit. And that pursuit is such. So we have so many people from Ascension Parish. We live in so many bayous and so much water that we have. It becomes a passionate thing, obviously, with me, as you probably can tell. Helping to keep children safe, to thrive, the confidence that comes from children that learn how to swim, not a question. Does it impact anything? The other things that I saw there was possibly a small little preschool. It's called Amazing Athletes. And what it is, very small, and it's just something that brings in children. Yes, we have a technology preschool, we have these, but we're talking about social development, physical development, emotional development, and sure, the intellectual development. Those 4 areas with children are critical to develop. But without that, that you have that balance, that a child feels comfortable, you might have an intellectual area, but they can't compete, so they can't adapt socially with someone. So that's a small area. The other area that I talked about that was a medical facility was an emergency care type of facility. And people that talk to me from Ascension Parish that come, if they have a pediatric emergency, we're not talking about a 24-hour urgent care, okay? We're trying to many corners. We're talking about pediatric emergency care. This is a pediatric little park that has small facilities that has access for the people so they can quickly get here. The many families that are up and down these roads that have children, okay? But the next generation, and that's how I foresee this area serving them and leaving something of value behind in my life. That's all that matters to me. That's all that I'm here for. That's all that's ever been in my day. I'm 62 years old. I could be that tomorrow. As far as the traffic things, I leave that up to the experts, the honorable men that stand right here, and on the honorable men on the council. I defer that to attorneys or Scott Ritter, who's a very honorable man as an architect. And I said, whatever that law says and what we need to do, we do. But surely we do not want to be next to a crane company on the middle of Airline Highway with something when I'm trying to wrap children around this and they feel comfortable and safe in a place like this and going to that. So that's how we kind of see that. Opportunities for development of our children. We have a number of, like I said, people. I did have, and I was concerned. So I came up with the idea and I called the architect. I said, I'd like to canvass the neighborhoods. I'd like to explain the kind of options here. We move out of this and whatever, and knock on doors. And actually, I asked one of the mothers that partakes and is enrolled in our swimming lessons program in Baton Rouge today, 4 children, and asked that. And I said, would you be willing to do that? She said, what this organization, or it's not even an organization, what this family, the family of Crawfish Aquatics does, I would be glad to do it for free. She spent almost 10 days with her husband and her sister and her 4 children, walking door to door to show and to answer questions. She had over 100 homes that she spent time, sometimes walking, sitting in for half an hour talking with them, and said, this is what this is about. Many were like, we didn't have any idea. We thought it was going to be some gigantic competitive program like you have at the Swagger's facility. No, it might be a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot thing with an indoor small pool, 20 by 30, that they can do year-round swimming lessons in a warm, heated environment that's very welcoming for children. 99% of all, over 100 signatures chose the selection of that versus what MU2 is. You could have a children's restaurant or something else, restaurant or something else. The time and the hours that we use there, there's nobody there at 7 o'clock in the morning. We don't do swimming lessons in peak traffic hours. We don't do them at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. These are 1, 2, what we call mommy and me classes that come, okay? And they come in the middle of the day. We're not even there on Saturdays or Sundays. Saturday morning, I take it back. We do some of that in Baton Rouge. No Sundays, but there's not 7 o'clock. We don't have people there. So this immense traffic that I hear, and excuse me, I'm not from here, but I am from here. Because many of the people that, I don't call it work, that serve with us and have an opportunity with Crawfish Aquatics in Baton Rouge live in Ascension Parish. In my pediatric dental office, probably 1/3 of the employees live in Ascension Parish and make that trip in. So I do have a connection with those, with the parish, and very much so. But it comes down to a culture that I'm very passionate about, passionately pursue to make a difference in child's lives. I know that you can see that, that's the vision. Aaron asked me to explain the vision. I'm surely open to any other questions regarding where we are at this point, specifics. I defer that to those that know more than I.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Staff, do you have any comments on this?
No, sir, I do not.
All right, well, let's get to the public hearing then. Ms. Patrice?
Sharon Sanders.
And again, I would ask that you please adhere to the 3-minute protocol on this. Ms. Sanders?
Good evening, Commissioners. This sign refers to the 2 previous times this development has been denied. 5 months ago, Crawfish Aquatics sought approval for a SPUD, small planned unit development, but a joint Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial to the council, which adopted the recommendation without objection February 23rd. We are not against growth and development. We want it when it is supported by good infrastructure. Crawfish Aquatics development should be located on or near Airline Highway. Longwood and Renaissance are both very nice, beautiful neighborhoods. But if this development goes through, it will become even more difficult and unsafe for residents to make a left turn onto 73, and when school starts, it's going to be almost impossible. 73 is already congested and dangerous. I am personally acquainted with this because while working with Mrs. Drago, I had to run an errand which required a left turn. The traffic was awful, so I had to make a right turn and then a U-turn. One issue that is often overlooked with businesses located next to neighborhoods is the dumpster issue. By the way, a lot of my speech has to do with safety and health of residents. There are no laws in Ascension Parish concerning dumpsters. Consequently, some businesses let them become very messy. Crawfish Aquatics' plan shows the dumpsters in approximately a 30-feet area jammed up next to the easement, which is next to the backyards of some Longwood residents. Nearby residents will be hearing the noisy garbage collection trucks do their job. There are no laws in Ascension Parish concerning medical waste. Medical waste is hazardous waste and should be locked up and disposed of as hazardous waste. And this includes dental waste. Both medical and dental facilities can be seen in the Crawfish Aquatics plans. I know of 2 businesses near the entrance of a neighborhood that have ugly dumpsters viewable from the neighborhood street near the entrance of the neighborhood. This is not a good impression, and I feel that it lowers property values. One dumpster does have a fence enclosure, but they leave the gate open to the dumpster, thereby putting its shocking ugliness on display to all who enter the neighborhood. There is always a bunch of litter and puddles of liquid around it. Can I finish?
How much more do you have? Because if I
Approximately-
let everybody finish, we'll be here all night. So
Approximately 1 minute.
I'll give you 30 seconds, ma'am.
In summary, my philosophy is NIMBY, not in my backyard, and many people share this philosophy with me. And my other philosophy is that developers are profit-driven. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders.
Jerome Hurley.
Good evening, Council. Just want to kind of second.
It's restarting.
Time, right?
It's restarting.
All right. Just want to kind of second some of
Get you
the.
3 minutes.
All right. Just want to kind of second some of the views brought to us by the last speaker. The dumpsters. I am the first property on the right in Longwood subdivision. The 30-foot buffer between my backyard and a dumpster really concerns me. The site plans have changed drastically. It looks like every week I see a different site plan, and, you know, I'm just afraid that it changes again between now and when the buildings are built. You talk about vision. I like Dr. Ripple. I like Dr. Ripple's vision. I have 5 kids of my own. I have a vision around that fence. That's for my home. You know, moving there, deciding on that property, moving here from Augusta, Georgia, there was no vision for commercial development at the moment. There was a vision for, you know, community involvement. I get that. I appreciate that. That's what the world needs. It's just a little too close for comfort, in my opinion. I'm sure there are a lot of people here that share that. Some of the things that Mr. Pryor, you brought up. Drainage. So I know that the body of water that runs right in front, or it's parallel 73. Some of that property is within FEMA's flood zone. I know Dr. Ripple is going to invest in elevating that land. I know that that water is going to somehow end up in the puddle that's created right now because he cleared out the land. You know, just some of the concerns that we want to bring to you. We need your help with, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brother.
Edward Dudley.
Chairman Pryor, members of the commission, my name is Edward Dudley, better known as Tony Dudley, and I live in the Renaissance subdivision. And one of the things I'd like to reiterate about is the fact that we did turn this down as a SPUD. It's called contract agreement now, but it's no different than the SPUD that came before us in February, except it's a little bit watered down because I think they realized they couldn't move Bayou Kadeen. The main problem we have here is safety, and that's the whole issue as far as I'm concerned, along with traffic congestion, but safety. The shared driveway coming out of this development, as you can see in your own plans, is almost directly across from the entrance to Renaissance subdivision. And that is the only entrance and exit from Renaissance subdivision. If there is a major accident happen, and there will be the way those intersections are lined up, there's no way for the residents of Renaissance to get in or out of their subdivision. Okay? The other thing is, I noticed in the plans that there's no traffic control at all on the plans, so that it'll keep people from turning into each other. As you know, 73 has got the suicide lane down the middle, and if you want to come out and watch what that suicide lane is used for, it's used for passing, it's used for merging. It's a dangerous highway as it is now. We have talked to many of the residents of Renaissance subdivision about this project, and 3 in particular I would like to bring up are 2 Baton Rouge policemen and a sheriff's deputy from Ascension Parish. They are all opposed to this project because of the safety concerns. When we went to school for planning and zoning, we heard all the criteria, but the #1 criteria was health, safety, and welfare of our residents. And this does not coincide with it. I'm not against development. I'm not against crawfish aquatics any more than I'm against motherhood and apple pie. But this is not the place for this development with the infrastructure that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
Denise Drago.
I'm Denise Drago, and I live in Longwood subdivision adjacent to the proposed contract being offered to this developer. My family and neighbors will be negatively affected by this proposed commercial development was denied as a rezoning request by this body on February 8, 2017. The Ascension Parish Council codified your wise majority decision by upholding your denial unanimously on February 23rd, 10-0, because of the infrastructure concerns. If anyone's driven in the horrible traffic on Highway 73, can you raise your hands? Commissioners, do you see all those raised hands? Traffic congestion on 73 hasn't been addressed, nor are developers offering any solutions. Nothing has changed now that the parish is considering a contract agreement besides reducing development's footprints and reducing parking spaces by a few square feet. Additional traffic from the proposed commercial development will add greatly to the already unbearable traffic congestion of 3 schools, peak work, and other traffic on Highway 73. In addition, the Ascension Parish School Board plans to build yet another primary school off 73 just a stone's throw, which will increase congestion even more. At the previous rezoning hearings, we were told that the Zoning Commission could not take what the APSB does into consideration because no laws govern the same. Adding to the traffic congestion, regardless of the source, is not in the best interest, health, safety, and welfare of Ascension Parish residents. If the proposed development meets the codes on the contract agreement, but health, safety, and welfare of Ascension Parish residents are at risk, then it should be denied, as in the case entitled Christopher Estates Incorporated versus the people of Baton Rouge. That's what I've handed you. That case met all the codes, but was denied and upheld on appeal because the people's health, safety, and welfare was jeopardized. Clearly, you have legal precedent to deny this development. We simply do not have the infrastructure to support any new major commercial developments on Highway 73. Can I finish? I'm almost.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Highway 73 is a state road, and the state has made it clear that they cannot keep up with the growth in Ascension Parish. No upgrades will be added beyond what they already have in the works. Commissioners, do what is in the best of the Ascension Parish residents. Please do your jobs, keep us safe, protect our health, safety, and welfare. Please place these in the public records for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drago. Just as a point of clarity, I looked up this case briefly, Christopher Estates versus the Parish of East Baton Rouge, 413 SO period 2D 1336. First Circuit Court of Appeal opinion from 1982. And just from a brief scan of the case, the Planning Commission of the East Baton Rouge Parish denied a otherwise legal subdivision. Court said, inasmuch as we found the action of the Planning Commission to be arbitrary and capricious, we permit any discussion of the appellant's first assignment of error, and they essentially reversed the decision of the trial court, which ruled in favor of the parish, and then assessed costs of $1,200 to the parish, finding that their actions in denying a legal subdivision was arbitrary and capricious. So just as a point of clarity on this case. Next one, please.
Scott Dudley.
Good evening. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Mr. Scheck-Snyder for coming through the neighborhoods to find out what people thought about the new area that they want to have built there. And I have a feeling that it is going to be a health problem because of the traffic there. Adding 84 parking spots in between 2 subdivision entry exits is not a good thing, I do not believe. And I think that if it has to go in there, that the entry-exit of it would have to be lined up with the Renaissance entry-exit with a traffic light put in there for safety of people trying to get in and out of the area. And there's also a 48-inch big, beautiful oak tree in the southwest corner of there. Now, is that a now you see it, now you don't when this goes in? Because right now, I believe it's parking spaces to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
Alina White.
Hi, my name is Alina White, and I live off of Rufus White Road, adjacent to Longwood. The proposed commercial development would affect the safety, health, and welfare of my entire family. I would like to talk to you about a letter written by Mr. O'Neill Parrington on May the 15th, 2006. Mr. O'Neill Parrington was the legal counsel for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. O'Neill Parrington is legal counsel for the entire parish now. Mr. Parrington, Jr. opined in this letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission 11 years ago that was handed out to you by Ms. Drago. And I'm going to quote that from May 15, 2006 letter. In the case entitled Christopher Estates Incorporated versus the Parish of Baton Rouge, Louisiana First Circuit Court of Appeal, 1982. The First Circuit Court of Appeal, which has appellated jurisdiction over Ascension Parish, held if a developer submits a plan meeting all minimum requirements, disapproval by the commission should be made only for reasons which are particularly strong and compelling with respect to the health and safety and welfare of the parish. This should dispel any notion that you do not have the discretionary authority to deny this proposal, even when all codes have been met. In addition, all codes have not been met, as mentioned by Ms. Goppel. Please place this in permanent record for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Heather Tompley.
Isn't that the one you just responded to? The same case? I just want to save everybody a lot of effort here. If you're going to quote the same letter again, I just want you to heed that the chairman looked it up, and it seems that, if I understood you
What I
correctly.
saw, I wasn't able to look it up on Westlaw because I don't have it on my
I have
phone.
the
but it
case
was-
here, and the First Circuit reversed and found that the planning commission was arbitrary and capricious in denying the subdivision, and reversed and ordered that they issue approval to the subdivision.
And assess the parish with court costs of $1,200, correct?
Yes.
All right. Ms. Tompley.
Heather Tompley.
Ms. Tompley going once. Ms. Tompley going twice. Okay, please move on, Ms. Patrice.
James Tompley.
James Tompley. Mr. Tompley.
Thank you. I just wanted to come show my support to my community and my neighbors. I am directly between both tracks. I have an autistic child, and I'm more concerned with him wandering because, as the doctor said, drowning is one of the major causes of death for our youth, more so with autistic children as well. So he's getting a little bit older, and his tendency to wander off is getting more. I do think the doctor's intentions are great, but I think we would appreciate it a little bit further away from our property, and that's all I really have.
Thank you, Mr. Tompley.
John Whitten.
Feel like I'm in the bottom of the ninth inning, and we've already got 3 outs, but for some reason or other, I got to get up and have a bat. I live at 37243 Longwood Avenue, And I just wanted to just give you a very brief overview of this. This project come up about in the early part of the year, and the way it come to our attention was the fact that there was a little yellow sign posted on the lots showing about a hearing. And I'm sorry, and the developer had no contact with us whatsoever. And at that time, what they wanted to do was use Longwood Avenue as an entrance and an exit point, right, turning in our driveway, our road, and making an immediate right turn to go into the development. Well, for our sake, they found out that that belonged to Longwood, and so they didn't have the right to do that because of the property. So once that was done, they decided maybe we should have a meeting. And so we had a meeting over in Park 73 where they came in and, like Steve said, made a presentation and all of the wonderful things that were going to happen. But, here again, I'm retired, and I need, some type of assurance that something like this is not going to cause flooding issues or drainage issues and things of that nature. And so far, I've heard nothing. I lived in New Orleans when Katrina went through, and nothing there had ever flooded before. Well, I lived in about the highest part of the whole city. I was 2 feet above sea level. My home didn't flood, but I missed it by 18 inches. But anyway, so it can flood anywhere. And I don't think that's been addressed properly, neither is the traffic. And so the only reason they become customer friendly is because they needed some type of dialogue with us before proceeding further. And I was part of the survey that his people did, and what they come out with, they had 2 plans, and they showed you the plan. Would you prefer item number 1 or item number 2? I never signed anything. And, and I think that's disingenuous because that puts a false opinion that the people for general concern liked it. And I know in our neighborhood, that's not the case because I walked the neighborhood getting named on petitions and all. So that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you.
Floor is right.
I live in Longwood subdivision, and my thoughts, like everybody else, is the problem that the traffic's going to cause. Getting in and out of the subdivision, it's a mess right now, And when school starts, it's even worse. And with the extra people that are going to be coming in and out of the new shopping center, it's going to be even worse. I mean, what are you going to do? If you haven't traveled 73, you don't know how bad it gets and how the people, they use that road for a racetrack right now. And that's what it's become. Now, my concerns as well is, what is it going to do to our property values? People aren't going to want to buy in that subdivision because it's hard to get in and out. I moved there because it was a little subdivision. It wasn't hard to get in and out of. But with that, all the new traffic, it's going to be hard, almost impossible to get in and out of there. So that's my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Brett.
David Ooze. David Ooze.
I'm David Ooh. I guess y'all be familiar to me, or I'm familiar to y'all, because I've been here a couple of times before about zoning. And I agree with a lot of stuff that these people have been saying, but I'm going to go back to one thing. They said one part of that property has been rezoned commercial, or whatever the rating for it. It's not residential but now, it was before. So this is kind of what created the problem here. And that's one of the things that I've been saying about along 73. Here's a section of land that's in the middle of a residential section that had been rezoned to more of a commercial use. And it's in a place where you should not be having this type of commercial activity here because it's next to the entrance-ways to these various subdivisions. Now, I understand there's nothing can be done about that now, but if that would not have been done in the past, and maybe y'all were not on the commission at the time, it might have been done with somebody else, we wouldn't be talking about this particular problem here today. But I travel on Highway 73 a lot because I live on it all my life. And I'm looking at the little map, and I'm sure y'all probably have that in front of y'all. But looking at the roads with Renaissance subdivision and the road coming out of that development, which has 85 parking spots in there, or 86, I don't remember exactly how many. But when somebody wants to make a left-hand turn in traffic coming out of that development, and somebody wants to make a left-hand turn out of Renaissance, everybody in this room knows what's going to happen. And if you look at the map further, that's 120 feet, according to the scale, between the center line of Longwood and the shared driveway. So pickup truck's 19 feet, so let's make it easy, 20 feet. What you put, 6 cars there? If they line up to make a turn into into this new development, how can the people in Longwood get out of it? Their subdivision. Before the light was put in at Post Office Road where I live, and I wanted to come from Aliceboro to go somewhere, the only place I could go was right, because the traffic was so bad and nobody let you across. Now, with the traffic like that, it has helped some. But there's no traffic light here. So I see the problem that these people are going to have. And, I think if you enter some kind of contract, you need to look at something about this particular traffic location right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Stephanie Guillory.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Guillen. I'm a resident in Southwood Village subdivision. I'm here tonight to talk about health, safety, and welfare of the children in my subdivision. My subdivision is off of 73. My subdivision is the subdivision that is used as a cut-through. So when traffic is backed up from Airline coming down 73 or in the opposite direction, people will turn on my Southwood Village, come all the way down, turn on my street, which is Beaujean Avenue, and cut through to Duplessis to get either back to Airline or 73. Our speed limit is 15 miles an hour on the street, okay? People coming through my neighborhood go 50 and 60 miles an hour. So while I love what you're trying to do for the children and saving the children, teaching them how to swim, I need to save the children on my street, okay? Every day I am out there stopping children from getting hit on my road. This is going to continuously back up the traffic and use my neighborhood as a cut-through. It's very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. I'm known as the crazy lady with the water hose because I stand out there with a water hose trying to slow people down. I've asked the police to come out there. I think this is wonderful. I'm for growth. I'm for responsible growth. It needs to be responsible. It needs to be responsible. And I really do love your idea. I truly do. I think it's amazing. But we're getting ready to get a school built on 73. He says it's not between those hours. Well, school gets out at 2 o'clock. So if he's got kids going to swim practice and we got kids trying to get out of school on school buses or carpool moms trying to get their kids at the new school and at St. John, we've got some serious problems. My neighborhood is going to be a cut-through. I've got people cutting through my neighborhood, and I've got kids that I'm trying to save on my street. So thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time. I really hope you consider everything that's being said today. I really do. Thank you.
Ms. Guillen.
Melanie Usury.
Good evening, fellas. My name is Melanie Usry. I've lived in Ascension Parish all my life, 59 years. I travel 74, major Highway 74 and 73 a lot. I try to avoid it like the plague now because it's already horrible. The infrastructure's terrible. I'm with some of these others, Dr. Ripple. I agree with all you're trying to do, but there will be traffic, maybe not during swim time, but what about daycare time and dental time? That's all through the day. So there's no way around it. It's going to be a lot more traffic. So the traffic does need to be discussed. The infrastructure does need to be fixed. Something needs to be done. So I'm against the development because of those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esser.
Philip Goppel.
Hey, I'm Philip. Well, passions are certainly running high tonight, so I wanted to start by saying thank you all for your service, thank you for your time, thank you for hearing what we have to say. Appreciate it. I am for growth. I'm for growth where infrastructure will support it. We have a master plan which discourages growth where infrastructure is inadequate. Does anyone really believe that infrastructure is adequate on Highway 73? So look, there's no conflict. You can deny the contract agreement, have the developer build what they want on the mixed-use portion, as is their right, or they can go and build it somewhere else. Airline Highway is one option. There are others like Highway 44. There's no conflict here. And if all this had been worked out before, we might not be having this contentious meeting now. But, we're Americans, we got to stand up for our rights at some point or we're going to lose them. So, again, I'm for growth. I'm for development. A lot of people here tonight are property owners. We understand that. We like it. At least I do. It's the American way. Just take our concerns seriously. We're not making all this stuff up about the traffic. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Goppel.
Catherine Goppel.
Good evening, Commissioners. Why do problems related to unbridled growth in our parish continue to add to the headache and heartache for Ascension Parish citizens? This commission is required by Louisiana law to have and follow a master plan. Complaining and casting doubt on our current master plan is inexcusable. If the plan needs amending, it's up to you to amend it. Negligence on your part is not an excuse to disregard the law. The question before this commission tonight is this: will you follow the law as directed by the master plan in the Unified Development Code? In Appendix 3 of the master plan, page 4, the first guiding principle, of which there are 12, for development relates to public safety and property values. Will additional development in this location jeopardize the safety of Ascension citizens? And people out here believe yes, and I agree with them. Page 5 cites the second guiding principle in our master plan as encourage growth only in areas of the parish which can support it with adequate soil drainage and physical infrastructure. Can the infrastructure withstand the increased traffic alone? No. First, will additional development in this location jeopardize the safety of citizens? Consider these points. 1, the unknown consequences to current congestion of the addition of a primary school less than a mile from the proposed development. 2, Highway 73 will go from a D to an F with added traffic from 5 commercial businesses. 3, the third lane or suicide lane will have additional hazards. 4, a left-hand turn from this area on either side of the road, whether entering or exiting, will be next to impossible. That's already been explained. From the layout presented, the following have yet to be addressed. No builder in his right mind would place parking on the edge of a bayou without a bulkhead. Has this been considered? Have you talked to the Corps? Have they given approval? Have they reviewed the plan? What road improvements are being offered by the developer to mitigate traffic? None. $25,000 to $30,000 will not mitigate the problems created by this development. Has a contract agreement created a loophole in the law for developers? It sure appears that way to the public. The developer was previously denied twice at the same location. There are other places in the parish where this would be appropriate and welcomed. Current law under 17-2060 gives you 3 options tonight. 1, accept the contract as submitted. 2, accept the contract subject to specified conditions not included in the contract. or 3, reject the contract. Because of current law and your master plan to protect the health, safety, and welfare of citizens, and the failure of physical infrastructure to support this proposed development, this contract should be rejected. Please place these comments in the public record.
Thank you, Ms. Capel.
Karen Smith.
Thank you, ma'am.
Troy Caracoli.
Presenter. My name's Troy Garacioli. I live in Seven Oaks subdivision, and I am not in favor of this Bayou Oaks mixed-use highway, or on Highway 73. Highway 73 is a state highway, and the parish has no authority whatsoever to improve Highway 73. Regardless of the impact fees you take in, you're not going to be able to improve Highway 73 because it is a state highway. Also, the governor has made it clear, as you stated earlier, sir, that the budget has no money to improve critical infrastructure highways like 73, nor does the parish. I'm asking that the parish not approve additional businesses and subdivisions on Highway 73 until the state makes improvements. That highway is very dangerous now. I ask that the parish follow its own rules and procedures and not enter into a contract agreement and subvert its own procedures. This development will have an adverse impact. I'll say that again because I've heard that here many times, no adverse impact. It will have an adverse impact on Highway 73 and the children that travel and/or are in proximity to that highway, because that highway, as I said earlier, is a very dangerous highway now. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight, and I agree with the majority of the people here that have made their statements. Thank you very much.
Councilman Doc Satterley.
Mr. Chairman, am I going to be timed tonight?
Yes, sir.
I humbly request being able to speak to you once tonight, as is I know you don't have bylaws. I wrote you about that recently, and I'm not here to take that issue up. That'll be taken up separately. But our council certainly does. And we have a bylaw that says that if you're speaking on behalf of people, you can be given, if the chairman decides, at his discretion, more time. And of course, I'm speaking in behalf of 12,000 plus people in District 4. And then I would like to speak as a citizen in District 4 who also pays taxes individually. Is that in any way fathomable or possible tonight before that timer goes off?
How much time are you requesting, Councilman?
Well, I have a prepared speech which I'd like to use in 3 minutes, and then I would like to, I don't know how long it'll take, address some of the things that you have chosen to, on a whole issue before the one we're at now, to discuss your opinion of law and so forth. I'd like to rebut some of that, if you don't mind.
I'll give you 2 minutes after extra time, Councilman, because
And
I'm sure you
Mr.
know
Pryor,
more-
I thank you for that. We can proceed. Thank
Okay.
you. All right, speaking for my constituents. Gentlemen, your job is simple tonight. No does mean no. And while we should continue to pray for everyone that drives 73, we've seen the signs, let's not require novenas. Make no mistake about it, Highway 73, which cuts across my district, is no doubt the most unsafe roadway in District 4, arguably in the entire parish. 73 is a daily traffic nightmare for those who have to drive on it, which will be only worsened if this proposal is approved tonight. The locals have not dubbed the recently state-added third intermittent lane the suicide lane for nothing. And while on the subject, don't count on our bankrupt state, heard this over and over tonight, which has canceled funding for road improvements on LA 930 just this week, to do the right thing and return their attention to Highway 73 and make it a 4-lane road anytime soon. Gentlemen, I applaud this body for making the correct judgment to deny this proposal when the developers first sought property rezoning to commercial use. As you know, your recommendation to deny did not fall on deaf ears. It was sanctioned by all members of the council, 10 of us, myself included. In fact, simple math will show you that out of 15 independently thinking, appointed and elected public officials that sat in judgment of this case so far, 13 voted to deny. That's nearly 90%. You know the old saying, 2 heads are indeed better than one. And there's wisdom in groups. I ask you gentlemen to keep that wisdom flowing tonight. In taking your second bite at this apple, don't forget all that you've heard from the many, many wonderful and brave residents of Ascension who publicly spoke here tonight, an overwhelming number, in my opinion, of souls who took time out from their busy schedules to plead for their health, safety, and welfare and for a decent quality of life. Gentlemen, you are not only have the discretionary authority to deny this contract agreement, but you also bear the responsibility to keep the public safe. And if the speeches were not enough for you, albeit not in person, ask yourself, what are the 555 citizens of Ascension Parish who drive Highway 73 daily and who signed Ms. Stragel's petition saying to you? Please stop the clock, ma'am. I would like to enter into the record 555 signatures by residents in Ascension Parish who are against this development. And don't be fooled by the developer's threat that the citizens need to accept the, quote, lesser of two evils or else argument. In that regard, in an attempt to actually help these developers, I warned them at the proposal before you at the pre-app contractual agreement meeting not to threaten folks with the inappropriate and worn-out argument that if the proposed development is not approved, then we will seek retribution and build something even more distasteful. Unfortunately, I see the developers have chosen not to heed my advice. You can see that in Scheme A in your packets. This all reminds me of an earlier case in my district wherein developers who were first denied a commercial rezoning of a recreational business facility off Highway 427, that's Perkins Road, in a residential neighborhood later sought a contract agreement threatening that if they were not approved, they would build mobile homes, quote unquote, up on stilts for Section 8 housing. Needless to say, that went over like a lead brick. Like the rezoning request, that Perkins Road CA was rejected. The developers still wanting their way went to court, filed in court what Lindsay Manda, our then legal counsel, said was a frivolous lawsuit that never saw the light of the day in the courtroom. I ask you, gentlemen, each and every one of you, will you allow the present intimidation tactics to influence your decisions tonight? Your state-required CRPC training tells you that in each and every case, you must make decisions on what is before you, not what might be. And I thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Councilman. You can have your 2 additional minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. I'm just going to, I don't have the exact quotes because you were talking very fast. You did say that the contractual agreement must show developer that adverse circumstances, and the argument here tonight is clear, is traffic, were mitigated. I defy y'all to show me where that's happened. It has not been mitigated. In fact, I even heard about impact fees. You just heard Mr. Caraccioli, I think, speak very well about that. Okay? In fact, I heard the attorney for the developer say that, hey, looking for, I guess, your pity or whatever, we're going to have to pay 25, 30 grand. Well, isn't that an admission then that you're going to have an impact on traffic? You also said, Mr. Pryor, it meets all the legal requirements. I'm frankly getting tired of hearing that from anybody up there. If you look, gentlemen, in Appendix 3 of the Land Development Code, Ms. Gupple talked about it and others, there's a thing called the master plan. It is law. And it says in there that you should discourage development where there's inadequate infrastructure, specifically mentions traffic. You also mentioned that you're not a legislative body. I just have to disagree respectfully. Louisiana Revised Statute 33.101.1 says you are. That's why you have the discretionary authority. That's why you did the right thing, which I thanked you for in my other speech earlier, and turning this thing down earlier. And I pray you have the wisdom and grace to do that again. And I thank you for the extra time, and I thank all of y'all for listening.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you for being here tonight. That's all. We will close the public hearing. Comments by the commission, questions, and/or a motion. Mr. Scheck-Snyder, you're looking at me, so I'm going to give you the floor first.
First off, I want to thank all of y'all for taking the time to come speak with us tonight. I have had the pleasure of speaking with about 8 or 9 of y'all that I recognized your names, and that were very good discussions. I don't want to necessarily say heated, but it was good discussions back and forth, and I sincerely appreciate you taking that time. Your voices were definitely heard, and it's given me a lot of information. I was not on the commission whenever this came up the first time, so this is kind of my first go-round on this one. Some things I do have to say that would directly answer, hopefully, some of your questions. There's the dumpster issue that I think Mr. Purley mentioned. I would respectfully ask that the doctor, if he had any way to explain to us if that can be agreed upon, that would be taken care of, or if that can have any way whatsoever that we can maybe set Mr. Purley's.
You can come up, sir. Yes, please come to the podium.
So, like I was saying, Mr. Purley has an issue with the dumpster and being what he quoted as possibly being 30 feet within his property line. Can we assure him that there would be anything taken care of or anything like that?
Yeah, we actually, and my name's Scott Ritter. I'm the architect for the project. I've spoken to this commission previously before. We had this conversation at the first round in February. I think Mr. Dumas was trying to help us figure out a way to address your concerns, Jerome. So the answer is yes. I mean, I can move the dumpster a little further away. We're already talking about having landscaping and fencing. There are ways for us to handle that. In that respect, I also can control, or Dr. Ripple can control, when we allow the dumpsters to get dumped.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we can put it in a time. It's not going to be at 4 in the morning on Saturday. You know, those kind of things. So.
Another thing that one of the other residents mentioned was dealing with hazardous waste, people possibly having access to it or anything like that. Can all that be considered in there and controlled?
Yeah, absolutely. We can control access to the dumpster.
Okay. One of the other issues that somebody mentioned was drainage. I did some checking, and from some of the checking that I have found is that currently Longwood subdivision is at higher base flood elevation than the new proposed subdivision, meaning the development. We all know that water flows downhill, and the idea that this development would send water back up through Longwood, I don't feel that would be an issue. If anything, Longwood would drain through this, going downhill toward Bayou Godine and the proposed detention pond. The actual drainage survey, the engineering drainage that would be done by the developer would possibly support this, and that's something that we would have to see. That would all have to meet code. Some of the other things that I heard was Mr. Dudley mentioned that there is only one entrance and exit to Renaissance subdivision. His son saw me out there. I visited both subdivisions numerous times since we've gotten our packets. I've gone at multiple times throughout the day, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock even, and 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and even sometimes during the day. The traffic is, I understand, it is somewhat difficult. But I also tell you, I used to live off of Loosemore Road, and that is something that's even worse. Making a left turn off of Loosemore Road, and we have somebody in the audience who lives near there, and she can verify that too. It is something that ultimately the state will and eventually will have to improve. That is something that I do relent and understand that is a safety concern, and I understand what you're saying. I spoke to a lot of people. I spoke to a lot of y'all, but I've also had a lot of people who were telling me how much they are for this. I just want to let y'all know that.
We're going to keep order, please. Thank you.
What I want to tell y'all is I think that this is still a good thing. It meets all the codes. The contract agreement is well within the zoning recommendations.
Ma'am, please refrain. We've had our public comment period. Thank you.
And on that, I just want to end my comment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Scheck-Snyder. Any other questions or comments from the commission? Or a motion?
I just want to say something, and I want to thank Councilman Satterley to come and speak to us. And I also want to thank him, for having the courage and the leadership to not once, but twice recognize the traffic issues that we have in the parish, and twice ask the people to reach into their pockets and help pay for it. I think, for an elected official, that's a brave thing to do. And unfortunately, the public resoundingly told them, not interested in paying for it, which to me translates to, it must not be that important. The purpose of the contract agreement is to, in fact, commit that this applicant is going to comply with the code and address both the traffic and the drainage impacts. That's what the purpose of that agreement is, and it will have to do that. I think Commissioner Scheck-Snyder brings up a couple of good questions on the layout of the parking lot and the location of the dumpster. I would encourage them to please relocate some of that parking and that dumpster to the northern end of the parking lot. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the contract agreement by Mr. Dumas, second.
I'm going to second it.
Second by Mr. Scheck-Snyder. All in favor? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any in opposition?
No.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
No.
Mr. Christie?
I would say no.
No. Mr. Scheck-Snyder?
Yes.
All right, so we have a vote of 2-2. So I guess it's incumbent upon the chair to break the tie. I will say this in response to all that, and I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We hear the term public health, safety, and welfare. The public and health, safety, and welfare is something that is legislated through our laws. Our freedoms get restricted because of public health, safety, and welfare. On basic levels, that's what criminal laws are. We can't do certain things because of public health, safety, and welfare. With that in mind, the Parish Council has set traffic studies, which this contract agreement must comply with. It has set drainage studies, which this contract agreement must comply with. In my opinion, the SPUD that came up before us was several months ago, I think was not very wisely rejected by this commission. It was the vote, the member who made the motion said, I'm not going to be here next month, so I'm going to move to deny it. But that was a restriction, that was a greater restriction on the property than what's on there now. And several of the things that are being proposed, at least two of them, they don't even need to come before us. All they're doing is saying, we're going to come before you, we're going to agree to do all this. There's no legal basis on which we can deny this, and therefore my vote is to approve the contract agreement. So the motion passes 3-2. All right, moving on, the next item on the agenda is the staff report.
No report.
We have a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Dumas. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.